A few years ago, it was all the rage. It was all the rage to kind of video yourself doing things. It still is to some degree, but there was this type of video, and they were kind of plague proportions. Thankfully, they have actually died down, and the videos were others helping people. Now, that sounds really good, doesn't it? Surely we would like lots and lots of videos of people helping each other. That's what we all want to see. But these particular videos, I'm sure you'll remember this, were of certain influencers or YouTubers or people on Instagram who filmed themselves doing something good. They made sure that if they were going to give some money to someone who at least looked homeless, give them the benefit of the doubt, probably were homeless, or someone who was in some form of need, they wanted to make sure that there was their camera, or their phone, on a selfie stick, pointed pretty much predominantly at them, doing this marvellous, wonderful thing to show how good they are and how nice they were. It was this most self-serving, horrendous thing ever, because they clearly weren't out to help people. They wanted more followers. They wanted everyone to see how lovely they were. And you could tell part of the issue was the fact that more than 50% of the time the camera was on their face and how kind of amazing and awesome they are, and very little on the actual plight and need of this person who is homeless or in need in some way. Didn't really care about what they needed. It was just more about, here, I've got some money that I'm giving you, and I want the world to see how awesome I am. It's very easy for us to look at that and think how terrible it is. But I do want to read a little bit out of Mark, and there is a bit of a challenge for us when we look at that, because it's very easy to do, and even for us as Christians, it's very easy for us to do. And so what does Mark have to say about our attitudes towards others and our attitudes towards kind of showing ourselves to the world? So it's in Mark, and it's in Mark 12, and it's verse 38 to 40. As he taught, Jesus said, "Watch out for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honour at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." What Jesus is talking about there is the Pharisees, the people who walked around and looked like they were really holy. So they wanted to be respected in the marketplaces, so people to respect them. So they wanted to look respectable. They wanted to look like they were the most holy, the most righteous, the one who knew the most about God, the one who was closest to God. So that's why they took the most important seats in the synagogues. They took the places of honour in other places so that people would see them as honourable or want to be like them or want to be around them or get on their good side. Yet Jesus says what they're doing in all of this big show, these lengthy prayers, clearly God would like them because they've got lengthy prayers in all of this. They're devouring widows' homes. So the contrast between what they want to show to everyone else and what they're actually doing, the dishonourable things they're doing, the unholy things they're doing, there's this huge disconnect. And Jesus is wanting his disciples to be very cautious and wary about this. See, because the Pharisees didn't get an income, that's just how it worked. They weren't paid. Pharisees received no money, and instead they relied upon the goodwill, the hospitality of others. So they relied on other people giving them money or inviting them in for feasts and things like that. They didn't get any money themselves. But what happened was that began to be self-seeking. That began to be exploited, because if you have someone who looks holy, who kind of looks like they're closest to God, who knows the most about God, someone who a devout Jew would look to and think, well, clearly I should give them lots of money because what they're doing is really good. I should support them and show hospitality and treat them with honour and respect because they are doing the right things. They are holy. God surely looks upon them with favour. And maybe even if you weren't a devout Jew, if you were someone who just wanted the favour of the Pharisees, think of the US elections where kind of presidential candidates have these massive companies that give them millions of dollars. And then when they get into kind of being president, there's always this expected thing that these companies will get tax breaks or treated more favourably. Similar thing. So maybe if I wanted favour, maybe if I wanted to be treated with respect, maybe if I wanted to be brought into places of honour, if I wanted to be kind of in the Pharisees' retinue, well, I would kind of win my way in there with making sure I supported them. Maybe a Pharisee who went to really nice feasts and looked the holiest and had the most honor and all the rest of it. Well, I would kind of become part of their retinue. They would get my support as long as I could go along with them. And then just being around them, if they're in the place of most honor, well, then I get to be in a place of most honor too. There was exploitation happening in all of this. And what Jesus is saying when he tells them to be wary of them, that there's danger because of how they behave. There's these lengthy prayers that they give. So people look at these lengthy prayers, but they do it for a show. But these prayers make it sound like they're awesome. These prayers make it sound like they're really in touch with God, and clearly God would answer them. Clearly God would look favorably upon them because of these lengthy prayers. They made a big show of everything that they were doing. It was for everyone to look at them and see how amazing they were and how kind of honorable and respectful. But just like the tree that we kind of talked about last week, it was all just on the outside, because inside they were spiritually dead. What they would do is, if a widow owed money, they would take their house. It's not much different to what a bank would do now, but a bank is a business, and a Pharisee was meant to be a religious leader. Jesus is being very clear that his disciples should be very wary of those who do all these big, showy things that kind of keep on pumping themselves up, and actually look at what they're doing. And what the Pharisees were doing was taking from the least. As a widow, there was no income. You're a widow. There's no way you can work because women didn't work. As a widow, you've got no husband who can get income. There's no husband who can defend you in court. There's no husband who can do any of the things that society wouldn't let a woman do but allowed a man to do. She had zero possibility of support. She had zero possibility of representation in court unless she was lucky enough to have a brother-in-law that would kind of support her. So if she's a widow, she has nothing. She has no defense. She's got no support. And these Pharisees, these people who were meant to be closest to God and doing what God wants them to do, were using that to their advantage and taking their homes and doing it for themselves. So Jesus says, watch out. There is a warning here for us as Christians, a warning to look out for people who seem to want honor, who look like they're kind of pumping themselves up, who want to make sure that they take the place of honor, that they're the most respected, that they're the highest kind of thought of around us. Because if that's the aim, then it's a wrong aim, and it's an aim for the person's self, not for God. The reason Jesus talks through this, he actually then goes on to talk about the woman giving 2 coins. There is an attitude here of humility and submission. There's a whole bunch of them coupled together where Mark wants us to understand what Jesus wants for a disciple. And it's not to be showy. It's not to try to put ourselves forward as being in favor so people should give us lots of stuff or that we want to be the most popular. Instead, it's about doing the right thing. So in the case of the widows, it wouldn't be stealing their houses, but instead supporting and defending them. We've got to be very careful as disciples because we're meant to seek the approval of God. And that was clearly something that God was not approving of. Whatever the Pharisees were doing, God did not approve. As disciples, our main goal, our purpose should always be to seek the approval of God, even when that means we don't get the approval of others. It means being humble. It means making sure that we're not making ourselves look awesome, but showing kind of everything, who we really are. And at the end of the day, what the Pharisees got massively wrong was how important they were. The Pharisees put it out that they were the most important things ever, the most important people. And as the most important people, then they deserve to be treated as such. Time and time again, Jesus calls out disciples to make themselves not the most important, to make sure that we're actively making ourselves not important, actively making ourselves not take the place of honor, not be the important one, not be the respected one in the crowd, not be the popular one, not be the one who gets all the praise and adulation. Because if you're in that kind of situation, there's people that are being pushed down. As disciples, we're meant to seek and follow Christ and his approval alone. So as we see those videos of people who want to make sure they look really good, celebrities who want to do a big donation drive and to make sure that everyone knows about it, they promote themselves giving. They don't do it secretly. And our society somewhat falls into this trap where we want to know how much people have given or who they've given it to, but actually the ones who are doing it out of a good heart for a good reason, we're never going to know. And that's the ideal, where people are giving and honest. And as disciples, we should be leading the charge in that. We should be making sure that our generosity isn't kind of publicised. Disciples are to watch out for people like the Pharisees. Disciples are to watch out for those who do the lengthy prayers, who seek the honour. But we're also not meant to be like them either. The challenge for us is to be discerning of those who are, and let the Holy Spirit confront us and rebuke us and correct us when we do things like that as well.